Ready? Okay, so today I'm here to talk about the physical ailments that are the consequences of obesity. And obesity is considered BMI or body mass index of greater than 30. There is a level of being overweight, and then there is obesity. And there are many causes for obesity. Some of us suffer with it genetically, behavioral, metabolic, and sometimes it's simply a lack of self care. This world is pushing us at such a fast pace where some of us are doing projects and, you know, running at such a rate that we're not taking care of our bodies. And I think with the amount of service sometimes we're doing and the extracurricular activity, we're in a push that we get food on the go, and that also is hard on the body. And I think it's easy for us to, to let our body suffer sometimes, um, with the rate that we're going. There are some medications that can cause obesity. Obesity can be a socio-economic factor. Issues like maybe there's not a grocery store nearby. I know I'm from Chicago, and there are certain areas where you really have to travel to get to a real grocery store. There are plenty of those little corner stores or 7-Elevens, but in some areas you really have to have a car to get to the grocery store. Um, and some of us, we work under a lot of extreme stress. Extreme stress can cause you to eat more comfort foods or eat on the go. Stress requires a lot of energy to cope and deal with stress. One of the major ones too is a lack of sleep. A lack of sleep and pushing yourself can also be a cause of obesity. Not getting proper rest, and in general, like I said before, overall a lack of self care can be a major contributed to contribute to contributed source of obesity. Um, and just like I said, the lack of sleep. Obesity, there are consequences that come with obesity that are not nice on our bodies. It's like I said, we're running at such a pace that we're not managing, and it's easy for us to forget about our bodies. But keeping in mind that God gave us this vessel, and we only get one go at it. We need to take care of it and manage it well. Obesity is growing right now at such an alarming rate. I for women, uh, it's it's at a 39%. For men, it's a little less, but it's still up there. And heart disease is said by the CDC to be the number one cause of death in the U.S. But the thing about the CDC is they do not correlate heart disease and obesity together. And when you look at it, obesity, the number one contributor to obesity is heart disease. And heart disease is caused by the increase of cholesterol and the hypertension. And both of those things are the number one associated factor with obesity. Uh, Obesity can cause you to have type 2 diabetes, which is the intake, which is caused by the intake of too many nutrients, which dummy down the insulin receptors. So when your body releases the insulin, there is not enough receptors to take it. So it shows that you have a lack of insulin when you really don't have. Your body's just not using it because it's flooded with it because of the increase in nutrients that are floating around in the body and not enough receptors. And so that can cause you to use to even have to suffer with injecting yourself with insulin when when the use of exercise. The good thing about type 2 diabetes, I'm sorry I'm jumping, is the fact that it's curable easily by lowering your calorie intake and putting your exercise and diet into effect. um, increase increase of insulin and fats in your body can also lead to kidney failure. Kidney failure can cause an increase in your blood pressure because our kidneys also help us. They also help us control our blood pressure. They control and balance the salts and minerals in our bodies. Uh, we can have the buildup of waste in our bodies should our kidneys fail. And most of us, when we become when we become obese, we have to take medications for things like blood pressure and blood sugar, and it's important for our kidneys to be working with those particular medications. And also, respiratory failure is another one that is a complication of obesity. Respiratory failure can increase our lack of CO2. Increase our CO, increase the CO2, increase the CO2 in our bodies, which a certain amount of CO2 stimulates our lungs to breathe, but too much of it also shuts it down. It can cause us to not have to fall asleep at work, to fall asleep at the wheel of our cars, to not have enough oxygen in our bodies for our organs to perform. Increased CO2 is doesn't allow our bodies to function as they are meant to function at all. So it's hard to move secretions from your body if your respiratory system is not adequate. And respiratory failure is generally caused by that buildup of the fatty layer in our chest and abdominal cavity that affects our diaphragm. So it doesn't allow our diaphragm to move efficiently. And when that happens, our breathing just become insufficient for our bodies. And so what happens in that case is we develop sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is a very, very dangerous disorder. When you lay flat, you have almost no respiratory function. Your breathing is very inadequate. When I say function, I mean the use of your diaphragm. Your breathing is very insufficient. You require oxygen sometimes. Sometimes there's a BiPAP that machine you get that blows air into your body. Of course, the lack of O2 in your body causes your organs not to perform appropriately. um, our bodies are made so that our organs are meant to move and expand. And when you have that overgrowth of fatty layer in your body, your organs are not allowed to move and expand. As you move and expand, actually you become a bigger person stuffed in a smaller skin, which causes joint and knee and arthritic pain. You are very uncomfortable. Your mobility becomes restricted. So these secondary diseases caused by obesity, they just wreak havoc on our bodies. The high cholesterol sets us up for heart disease and high blood pressure. Um, the develop of fatty tissue in our bodies leads us to respiratory failure. Again, respiratory failure causes the sleep apnea. Where our normal breathing is no longer sufficient, bringing in sufficient enough oxygen to allow our organs to perform. So it's just like a vicious, very, very vicious cycle. And it just seems to just like totally wreak havoc on our organs. And so high high sugar levels can make you subject to renal shutdown. It really not really obesity seems like it's at its best. Sometimes can be something that we can get away with, but in actuality, in some ways, it wreaks havoc on your body. Your body lets you know, and it speaks to you whether it's coming up the stairs and that joint pain is speaking to you, and you're going ouch, 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 or you have to take an Advil every day so you can deal with the joint pain. Your body's speaking to you and letting you know that it's time to do something. And God gave us this vessel, and I mean, we really should, take care of it. And I know that sometimes the way with the schedule we're running, we simply don't make a routine of exercising, and some of us are using fast food, the intake of high calorie meals, carbohydrates that when we eat out, that our meals are prepared with. Um, Not healthy oils, and the fact that some of us with the schedule we don't have time to always sit down and make a meal, so all of that is affecting us as a society, that we no longer go outside. I mean, and even at work, just going outside really just sets me free. Like, I have a whole nother thought process just walking outside for a moment and walking around the block. uh, Walking instead of having lunch and then having a health bar. It's just time that we started looking at other ways of preserving our health. This obesity rate is climbing steadily. Um, the prevention part of it is exercising regularly, having an adequate and appropriate diet, and having an adequate and appropriate diet, and also being able to spend time working out, and the reason I'm doing this, the reason I chose obesity was to bring home the fact that this obesity thing is really destroying like whole families. I know me and another person, at least one other person in my family, are having serious consequences of being overweight. So my purpose of doing this study was to sound the alarm for not just uh, the U.S. but globally. We need to somehow start to educate our children early, screen them early if possible, educate parents on obesity, and uh, start to get back what we lost, like family time and spending time outside together, allowing the kids to have playtime, making sure that we have physical ed, or if we can get physical ed back in school. That is another important effect. Important things that we need to do to get the kids active again, and um, providing the kids with a healthy education on lifestyle. We have so many luxuries that keep us from being healthy too. Like, we used to walk everywhere, and now cars are affordable, so people have cars and they drive everywhere. Some now we no longer do our own grocery shopping. We can pay people to go to the grocery store for us. So society has really taught us to weed out healthy ways of that we used to exercise, going up and down the stairs. At my job now, I choose to go up and down the stairs instead of using the elevator, because sometimes that might be the only exercise I get that day, is using the stairs all day. So it's important now for us to start just paying attention to what we need to do to better serve our bodies, and knowing the amount of calories that you can take in. It's important not to take in more calories in excess to what you're going to use or your body's going to demand that day. So prevention is going to focus on healthy dieting, exercising, bike riding, anything you can do to burn calories, but also getting some healthy foods and eating them in the right amount, right quality, um, will also help us avoid food traps. Try to avoid stress. Stress can also cause you to overeat. And whatever routine you do, being consistent with it. If you're going to ride a bike, ride a bike. If you're going to walk every day. Even making small changes in your diet can help you. Um, and maintaining those changes will create a long-term positive change in your weight. So just being consistent in everything you do and alleviating some of the stress. So it's time for us to educate healthcare providers on what we need to do on educating people on obesity. If you're getting healthy education from your doctors and healthcare providers, that can help you. I know that Kaiser and a lot of these hospitals now have programs that you can go to that will not only design a workout program for you, but also a diet. You can see a dietitian with just a recommendation from your doctor, and starting your kids on a healthy same thing diet and routine, or even making it family day to where everyone's out and about in the neighborhood. So the purpose for me doing this is to sound the alarm that the obesity rate is growing. Back in the 90s, we were at 15%, and now we're vastly approaching 40%, and most people say that we're already at 40%. I know in the female category, we're already at 40% just about. So my purpose of doing this was to sound an alarm, not just in the U.S., but globally. We need to start educating more on the risk and the physical ailments of obesity.